everybody, I'm Jonathan from Boredom Sated, and today I'm going to talk about a wizard build that I have played, and it made some of the other people in the game not super happy with the way that things went. So, first thing, let me tell you what is the build. It is a wizard build. It is the Blade Singer. The Blade Singer comes from the Sword Coast Guide. Now, in the Sword Coast Guide, it does specifically say you're supposed to be an elf or a half-elf to play it, but that's specifically for Faerun. If your GM lifts the restriction, your GM lifts the restriction, but that's up to him and up to you guys. It doesn't really make that big of a difference, especially considering one of the best races to play this as is a high elf. So first, it's a wizard. So what do you think your stats are supposed to be? Intelligence is supposed to be one of your high stats, and dexterity needs to be your other. Constitution should probably be your third best stat if you can do this. Now, obviously, when you're doing standard stat builds, you can't be super high. One of the reasons why my stats ended up being so good and why this was so powerful is because we did roll, and I did roll well. It meant that by level 8, I did have a 20 in both dexterity and intelligence, and that is very important for this build. So, what is this build? How does it work? What is the Spell Singer and what makes it so special? So the Spell Singer is a specific type of wizard that basically what it does is it's special is you activate an ability called Spell Singing. You get Spell Singing at level 2, and what it does for you is it gives you your intelligence bonus to AC. It gives you a 10-foot movement bonus. It gives you your intelligence bonus to concentration checks to maintain spells, and it gives you advantage on all dexterity acrobatics checks. It lasts for 1 minute, and it is a swift action or a bonus action to activate, which obviously makes it great. Now, why does this matter? This build also lets you wear light armor. So you can start with studded leather with no penalties because what's casting penalties with the armor anymore? So you can you can wear studded leather armor to get yourself to a base 12. You get your dexterity to your intelligence to your AC, and you can get your intelligence to your AC. So once you get your stats up to 20, that's a 22 intelligence or 22 AC before you do anything and have no magic. Now, what's one of the most broken spells in 5th edition, especially for casters, well, especially for wizard types? One of the things about Shield as a spell is that it raises your AC by 5 until the beginning of your next turn. So if you have a standard wizard and you have an AC of 12 or 13 or something like that, it makes it so that you're hard to hit, or not at least super easy to hit. Well, what if you already have an AC of 22? Well, now you have an AC of 27. Getting an AC of 27 with 0 magic items is not super easy, and I promise you will annoy a lot of people. Honestly, we were still playing a relatively high magic campaign. I stayed away from AC items because I didn't want to piss off the GM more than I already did. When everyone else in the party had an AC of between 17 and 20, I had an AC of 27 or 28. This is not great, but at the same time, it is hilarious. When all the monsters at your level, at level 5 or 6, and I had an AC of only 24 when I cast Shield, the monsters at that level have like a +7 to hit. They need like a 17 or an 18 to even hit you. Most of the time, I only got hit when my GM rolled a 20. So that is an important aspect of this character class. Now, what else makes this class good? First, at level 6, you get an extra attack. This is the only way for a wizard to get 2 attacks, and it's important because 2 attacks do make your character better. Until then, what can you use? You can use some of those cantrips that allow you to attack, like Green Flame Blade as obviously the most common one. Green Flame Blade is an amazing cantrip. Next, what else does this build do for you? What other spells are important for it? Now, Absorb Elements is another great first-level spell to take because you can use it to tank with. If you get hit by a spell that deals some type of damage, of elemental damage, you can absorb half of it and then add it to your next melee strike. This is, again, really great if you're being thrown spells at instead of melee attacks because, again, once you get enough melee attacks thrown at you that can't hit, they'll eventually just start throwing spells at you because what is the weakness of a wizard? You got no hit points. That was literally the only weakness to my character. My hit points were terrible, so all my GM had to do was basically try to just keep throwing spells at me, and even if I made the save, I'd still take some damage and slowly die. Now, what makes this build so strong for attack purposes? Because right now it just sounds like you're just a regular attacker. Well, that's where my next spell that is very important to this build comes into play. And that spell is called Shadow Blade. Shadow Blade comes from Xanathar's Guide. It's a 2nd level spell. And what it does is it's a spell that creates a sword out of shadows. The sword does 2d8 base damage. It is, you can actually throw it and it'll come back to you. It is finessable, so you've got that bonus to it. It base damage, again, is 2d8. That's not bad for a 2nd level spell, so you can have your attack do 2d8 every time. But it's also heightened. When you use a 3rd or 4th level spell, it does 3d8. When you use a 5th or 6th level spell, it does 4d8 per hit. And when you use a 7th or higher level spell, it does 5d8 per hit. Now, some people might say, well, why don't you just use haste? Remember, you can only have one spell on you, or you can only cast one spell that is concentration, and Shadow Blade is a concentration spell. But at the same time, once you start attacking people with 4d8 plus your dexterity damage per hit, they start forgetting about the fact that you're a wizard. Now, moving on, why is this build still, you get even stronger as you level? So at level 6, you get your 2nd attack. At level 10, you can spend spell slots to absorb damage. The damage you absorb is equal to, I think it's 5 times the spell level that you spend. So that's very strong. Third, at level 14, if you get that far, honestly, my character didn't get that far. He retired because my GM threw 2 dragons at us, one for the party and one for me. I killed mine first. So what happens with that point at level 14? You get to add your intelligence to damage too. So now you're doing 4d8 or 5d8 per hit plus 10. How do you make sure you hit more consistently? If you can find a way to fight in shadows, you automatically get an advantage. Another great ability. Shadow Blade is a fantastic spell, and when you combine it with the ability to move faster, get extra attacks, get extra AC, and have that bonus to your concentration checks, it becomes very, very strong. And all of this is done without a single magic item. Now, a couple more spells just to make it so you understand that this build can be made stronger with other things. Obviously, cantrip Green Flame Blade is incredibly important. It just makes it easy for you to do some simple AoE damage. First level spells are Shield and Absorb Elements. They are obviously to great importance. Second level spells, Shadow Blade and Misty Step. Being able to use your bonus action is incredibly important. And Misty Step makes it so that you can get that extra movement around and be able to do things with it, in case you do need to go in, go out, and be able to attack. Third level spells, and really this is what makes the build so massively powerful, is Counterspell. Since you don't need to be using your spell slots for anything once you get into combat, you're only using them for defensive purposes. So if you're fighting a caster, if you can counterspell them. If you're fighting against a fighter, you cast shield with your reaction every turn. You can be so powerful and make it so that nothing can ever really happen to you unless your GM rolls very high or just starts the fudge rolls. I got crit at least once every game session just to prove that I could be taking damage and be in danger. And of course, I'm going to also include 2 of my favorite 5th level spells just because they are nice and they're difficult to deal with. One of them is called Steel Wind Strike. Basically, it lets you teleport around the battlefield. You can hit up to 5 enemies, all within 30 feet. You teleport next to each one and make an attack at each one. If you hit, they take 6d10 force damage from that sword. And it fits for the build with that you're a melee wizard. And the last one is Synaptic Static. And that's mostly because in a couple of other videos, we've talked about that intelligence is one of those saving throws that most people just decide to leave out. Synaptic Static is an intelligence saving throw that, if they fail it, reduces all of their bonuses and checks by enormous numbers, by a d6 until they make an intelligence saving throw, which is fantastic. Anyway, There's other possible advantages you can do and possible other things you can do to play around with this build. With the magic items I eventually had a 32 AC, and I didn't even ask for any AC, really, like AC-related items, but it's just what I ended up getting. You can obviously change around some other stuff to make it so it's more fun for you. And also all the other spells you can take for non-combat purposes. You're also an intelligence character, so you can do all sorts of things with skills. And this can still be a high role-playing character as well as being incredibly combat efficient. But the main purpose to this is saying, I can hit you. You don't do that. No, you don't do that either. No, you shouldn't do that either. And I'm going to just get away from you whenever I feel like it. And that's the general idea behind that build. If you have any questions or issues, if you think there's something that I missed or something that I think that you think is should be put into this build, let me know in the comments. If you liked it, like it. Subscribe to our channel if you want to hear anything more, or if you wanted me to talk about, or one of us to talk about another build in 5th edition, let us know. Otherwise, everybody have a good day. See you guys next time.